when Anthony Barajas and Rylee Goodrich went on their first date on the 26th of July, 2021, they decided to end the evening with a 9:35 p.m. screening of the Forever Purge at the Regal Edwards Theatre in Corona, California. Once the film was done, the cinema staff entered the screening room to tidy and clean up, but to their absolute horror, they found the pair still in their seats and covered in blood. 18-year-old Rylee Goodrich was tragically pronounced dead at the scene, but 19-year-old Anthony Barajas was rushed to the hospital and put on life support.
Our top story tonight, a cold-blooded murder inside an Inland Empire movie theater.
Yeah, an 18-year-old woman was shot in the head and died. Her 19-year-old friend was shot and is on life support. As KCAL 9's Nicole Comstock reports tonight, the victim's family is searching for answers.
This young woman's cousin says she doesn't know if this was a random or targeted attack, but she's asking anyone with information about the shooter to turn that person in now. With so many unanswered questions about the shooting, who did it? Why? How did they get away? Why no one else seemed to notice the gunfire in a public place?
Who had shot these innocent victims, execution style, during the film? And why had no one else heard the gunshots? This is the devastating story of the murders of Anthony Barajas and Rylee Goodrich. Anthony Michael Barajas was born on the 9th of August 2001 to his parents, Brian and Catherine. His parents said that they always knew Anthony was special. He could talk to anyone and had a quiet confidence that resonated far beyond his years. Anthony was a high school honor student, a star athlete, and team captain of his soccer team. He was also heavily involved in the performing arts and was an extremely talented singer.
One of the CIF final games or semifinals, but it was also the same night as our big Christmas spectacular called Madrigal Feast. Anthony was our king.
He scored 2 goals. He left at halftime, went to that Madrigal Feast, and then the next morning we had a service project where we fed the hungry at Vanguard University, and he was there at 7 a.m.
And the way I remember Anthony is eyes closed, just throwing out the tenor harmony as boisterously as he possibly could. He always wanted to share. He always wanted to build.
In 2019, Anthony began posting on TikTok, making singing videos and doing pranks and challenges under the account It's Anthony Michael. Over the next few years, he became very popular and grew to have nearly 1 million followers. Anthony met 18-year-old Rylee Goodrich over the 4th of July weekend in 2021, and the pair immediately hit it off. Rylee was also doing incredibly well in her life. Alongside her successful cheerleading and volleyball playing, she ran her own eyelash company, and she had received a scholarship to Grand Canyon University in its STEM program. A few weeks after meeting, Anthony went on holiday to Hawaii with his parents, which he documented on TikTok, and the pair planned to go on their first date once he got home from his trip.
Update, Jade's ruining the vacations with her TikToks.
No, I'm not. Update, no one is ruining the family vacation. Update, Anthony is ruining the family vacation. You should hear how loud he is in our room, and he won't stop coughing.
Update, I'm still having to do shit like this, and Jade's still TikToking.
Hey.
I'm still ruining his family vacation. Well, look at this view.
When the 26th of July, the day of the date, came around, Rylee's father said that his daughter was extremely excited and seemed happy for the date. She got herself all dressed up, curled her hair, and Rylee and Anthony went out together that evening.
It was like a real date, you know. We'd go to dinner and then go to a movie, and she curled her hair on her way out.
Rylee and Anthony arrived at the Regal Edwards Theatre in Corona, California, and they bought 2 tickets to the 9:35 p.m. showing of the Forever Purge. In the movie, the plot is centered around all crimes being legal for 12 hours, including murder. 4 more tickets were bought for the screening that evening by a group of friends, and one of those friends was 20-year-old Joseph Jimenez. During the film, Joseph's 3 friends started noticing that he was behaving erratically and talking to himself. Halfway through the movie, Joseph left the room and then returned with a backpack from his car. one of Joseph's friends asked him what was in the backpack, and Joseph said that it contained a strap. Joseph's 3 friends grew increasingly uncomfortable as they saw him become more erratic, muttering to himself, "I can't do that to them." Fearing that he actually had a weapon on him, they told Joseph that they had to use a restroom, but instead they went outside, leaving the theatre. As the film continued, Joseph walked up behind the couple and shot Anthony in the head. As Rylee jumped in fear, Joseph turned the gun on her and pulled the trigger, also hitting her in the head and killing her instantly. Joseph then ran from the theatre, jumped into his car, and sped away. When the movie finished and the credits started to roll, the movie theatre employees came in to start cleaning up. They found Rylee dead and Anthony clinging to life. Anthony had been shot in the eye, so they quickly rushed him to the hospital and put him on life support. As Anthony clung to life, police immediately tried to find who had been responsible for killing Rylee and seriously harming Anthony. They went to the theatre to trace who else had purchased tickets that night, and the trace led back to Joseph Jimenez. After seeing press releases the next day, Joseph's 3 friends went to the police and said that they believed Joseph was the one who had shot Rylee and Anthony. This further tip led to a raid on Joseph's home, and when they approached him at his trailer in Corona, they saw he was waving a handgun. During the raid, they found a gun that matched the bullets left at the crime scene, Rylee's wallet, and additional evidence related to the crime. Joseph Jimenez was swiftly arrested on suspicion of murder, attempted murder and robbery, and he was held on a $2 million bail. Corona police said that the attack was completely unprovoked, and the victims were shot without any kind of prior contact.
Shooting at a Corona multiplex theater is now a double murder case. 19-year-old Anthony Barajas passed away this morning. He had been on life support after being shot in the head Monday night.
Devastatingly, Anthony Barajas passed away on the 31st of July 2021 after spending days on life support. His family was absolutely heartbroken, but they said that they were so proud of Anthony when they realized he was a registered organ donor.
In the OR when he took his last breath. And it was so difficult. But we got to see that team start to take Anthony's generosity and give it away.
Hours after Anthony's death, a vigil was held outside the movie theater.
I know that the biggest thing she would want is just to have everybody together. So I think that she's looking down on us right now, and I think she's smiling.
It's pretty unbelievable, but I'm just really blessed and excited to see that this many people care, and we can come together as a community.
Being here tonight and seeing both their faces, it just doesn't feel real, like Skylar said. She should be right here with us, and I just really wanted them to get to know each other.
She was in my chemistry class. Awesome person. Made friends with everyone. Never negative. What I got from this message is check up on people, because you never know when it's going to end.
Anthony and Rylee's families, however, would not get justice until 2 years later, when the trial and sentencing finally took place in 2023. Following Anthony's passing, Joseph's charges were upgraded to 2 counts of murder and special circumstance allegations of lying in wait, which made him eligible for the death penalty. Joseph initially pleaded not guilty to 2 counts of murder and not guilty by reason of insanity, but later withdrew those pleas. Instead of a criminal trial, a judge heard the case and determined Joseph's state of mind at the time of the murders. Joseph's defense was that he was not rational at the time and in the throes of schizophrenia, claiming he was insane at the time of the shooting. The defense was required to prove that Joseph was incapable of knowing the nature of his act and of distinguishing right from wrong at the time of the shooting. His attorney, Charles Kenyon, described how Joseph had suffered following the loss of his mother a year prior. They argued that Joseph had been plagued by voices commanding him to engage in violence and even take his father's life, before his father could kill him and his sisters. Joseph said that during the film, voices came from several rows in front of him where Rylee and Anthony were sitting, saying, "We're going to get you guys." Charles Kenyon stated that Joseph was misguided by the voices, and in the theatre he thought he had no options. He argued that Joseph was acting out of fear in defense of his friends and family. Charles Kenyon added that Joseph could not discern right and wrong. He said, "He doesn't recognize things in real time. There are things highlighted in his brain that aren't there. He's hearing ghosts. This is a person who is literally insane. He thinks he is going to die. All of his delusions were 100% schizophrenia. We all agree that schizophrenia caused this. Joseph Jimenez is not a bad person, but the legal burden is what it is. At the end of the day, unarmed people with their backs turned to you that don't appear to overtly present a threat is not under any circumstance something you can defend from an objective perspective." Charles Kenyon concluded that the person on the night of the shooting was insane. While Joseph did understand the nature of his actions, he was so overcome by his mental deficiencies that the moral implications of the shooting escaped him. Senior Deputy District Attorney Kevin Beecham countered the defense on almost every point, emphasizing that Joseph was not short of help, having been admitted to hospitals for mental health treatment multiple times over the 11 months prior to the killings. He pointed out that when Joseph was hospitalized for mental illness several times before the shooting, he was told each time to take his medicine and not misuse drugs. Yet he ran out of medicine, smoked marijuana, and drank alcohol. Kevin Beecham said the discharge orders were always the same: take your medication and don't do drugs, but he did the exact opposite. According to the prosecution, Joseph failed to show up for appointments with doctors, didn't get his medication refilled, and regularly used marijuana and chugged alcohol. Kevin Beecham highlighted that Joseph captured much of this recreational substance abuse on his phone camera, and Kevin shared the images. They presented videos of Joseph smoking cannabis and conversing normally with friends as evidence that he wasn't out of control. They argued that Joseph was aware of his actions and capable of distinguishing right from wrong at the time of the shootings. The prosecution argued that Joseph's actions showed there was no moral dilemma. After the shooting, Joseph experienced a consciousness of guilt when he stole Rylee's wallet, fled the theatre through the emergency exit, sprinted to his car, and ran stop signs to make his getaway. They asserted that Joseph knew the victims were innocent and didn't have to kill them. He had made up his mind to do so 20 minutes prior to shooting them, even though the voices that urged him on had gone silent. Kevin Beecham said, "Why would he shoot unarmed victims based on threats? He didn't have to shoot these victims. He was sane." The prosecution emphasized that Joseph's deliberate actions before and after the shooting indicated he was aware of the nature and consequences of his actions, challenging the defense's claim that he was not in control of his mental facilities at the time. When it came to the judge to decide whether Joseph had been sane at the time of the shooting, Superior Court Judge Hollenhorst stated, "There is no question that the defendant suffers from schizophrenia. It is also clear to this court that the defendant was not treating his mental health issues appropriately by not regularly taking his medication." The judge noted that Joseph stealing Rylee's wallet after the shooting influenced his ruling, as did Joseph's normal interaction when asking a female concession worker for her phone number before the movie, as well as warning his friends about the imminent shooting, running out an emergency exit afterwards, and not immediately telling police about the voices. In the end, the judge ruled that Joseph was mentally competent when he fatally shot the two teenagers. He was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder, as well as a sentencing enhancement for the personal use of a firearm causing death.
When he walked by me, I was just like, pure rage. Like, I couldn't even think of the words to say, but I knew that I had a window and I just wanted him to look at me.
Hey, look at me, bro. Look at me.
No.
Look at me. Look at me, dude.
At sentencing, families from both victims took the stand and spoke directly to Joseph, telling him how he had shattered their worlds. Anthony's mother, Anthony Barajas, said, "Every single night, I fight to try to remember his smile, rather than him lying on the floor bleeding from a gunshot to the head that you inflicted."
You had no regard what your actions would do to my relationship with my son, how your actions would take away the chance for my son to ever be with me or any of his family again.
Anthony's sister Jade spoke about how she missed her big brother and how the tragedy had broken her. She said, "I want justice. I want peace for my family. It's time we put this part behind us and start to fully heal from this."
I was a 16-year-old girl going into my senior year of high school with high hopes for myself. This tragedy broke me.
Anthony's father, Brian, held his son's picture and spoke about the choices leading to his son's murder. He said, "You stole the lives of two young people with so much potential to do great things. Anthony was so full of life and touched so many lives in a positive way."
To warn your friends to leave, to lie in wait and shoot two innocent people in the back of the head because you wanted to rob them.
Rylee's parents were too heartbroken to attend, but her grandfather, Patrick, took the stand and said, "This past December was the first time in 3 years that there was any sense of a Christmas at the Goodrich household."
Rylee's immediate family was so crushed by this crime that for a few months thereafter, I was fearful that her father, my son, would harm himself.
Rylee's best friend, Skylar, was also there and said,
945 days that our hearts have been shattered and will never be the same.
Finally, 23-year-old Joseph Jimenez also took the stand and said, "I just want to say to the families that I'm sorry and I wish I never did what I did, and my condolences. If things could have been different, I would have made a different choice."
I just want to say to the family that I'm sorry and I wish I never did what I did.
In the end, the judge had a final message for the courtroom and Joseph. He said, "Parents are not supposed to bury children. That's not how life is supposed to work. The court hopes that deep down in your soul that you feel sorrow for taking the lives of two innocent victims." Joseph Jimenez was sentenced on the 26th of February 2024 to life in prison without the possibility of parole, as well as an additional 50 years to life. Following the sentencing, Anthony's parents spoke to the press saying,
Just wanted to make a statement and tell everybody that I'm very happy that this part is over. It's been a very long 2.5 years, and it's time to close this chapter, to focus on our son and to carry on his legacy. We're going to do that by continuing to do small acts of kindness, one at a time, to make a difference in the world and to keep him alive. But we would ask that you guys would remember him in the way that we described him today, for his beautiful smile and for the way that he actually made a difference in the world. Our condolences still to the Goodrich family, and we thank you for your support.
Following the murders, the community came together to show how much the teens meant to them and how profoundly they had impacted everyone. GoFundMe pages were created for both Rylee and Anthony to help cover funeral expenses. 600 people attended Anthony's funeral to thank him for his random acts of kindness. His mum, dad, sisters, and many cousins heard stories of how Anthony lent money to friends between jobs, reached out to the shy, awkward kid in the class, or simply met someone having a bad day with his engaging, friendly smile.
I know that nothing I say or do will change the fact that you are no longer here with me physically, but as you said in your final post, I will try to follow your very wise words. Better to lose count while naming your blessings than to lose your blessings counting your troubles.
Please try not to be angry and let this change any of you. Continue to follow Anthony's examples and live life to the fullest and by making others around you happy. This by far was my son's greatest accomplishment. You will be greatly missed, Anthony. I love you, bud. Best of sons, best of men.
In a statement, his family said, From his quick smile to his compassionate heart, Anthony's presence was a gift to all who knew him. Anthony's parents emphasized that his greatest influence was not on a social media platform, but rather on how he had made other people feel, simply by the way he treated them. Anthony's father said, "His smile, everyone loved his smile. Just having him smile at them made them feel better." Anthony's family started the Anthony Michael Barajas Foundation, and several scholarships have been awarded to local students who have written essays on their acts of kindness and how collectively these small acts can affect the world in a big way. His family say the foundation has been a source of healing for the family. His mother Catherine said, "The tragedy has been very, very difficult. Lots of times we are very sad. We can drive into the foundation. It always ends in tears, always ends with us feeling so much better." Anthony's soccer teammates also paid tribute to him on the field, a place he loved so much.
He was fearless. Brave. Sang at the highest level, performed at the highest level, and was never scared. That was his moment for sure. As much as he was on the soccer field doing things, he was in performing arts doing the same things, and that's special. You don't have to be a 4.0 student, but you have to give 150% in everything you do. And that was Anthony. That was Anthony to a T. There was nothing he didn't give 150% to.
Before one of their games following his murder, they all wore jerseys with the number 9 and Anthony's name on them, as they practiced in his honor.
We do prayer services every year with the Barajas family, and they talk about his legacy and things that were important to him and try and pass that on to our players. As a captain, making sure that he included every single one of the boys in everything and never made, even the guy who maybe never saw the field, he made him feel like he was a star just like him.
Outside the theatre, friends and loved ones wrote messages in a tribute to the victims, and they placed a life-size cutout of Rylee Goodrich.
She just wasn't afraid to be herself. She was always real with everyone.
Very bubbly and sassy.
Yeah. You just couldn't believe that it was her when you found out. Because, you don't know how somebody could do that to a person like her. Because she was really, caring and sweet.
A paddle out was held off the coast of Seal Beach in California in honor of Rylee.
Your favorite beach? Come watch Dad get slammed on his hand.
Rylee's family stood on the shore as loved ones swam or rode boards out into the ocean. They formed a prayer circle, splashed the water high, and threw flowers into the center in tribute to Rylee, as she loved the beach and the ocean.
I think she'd be super stoked to see all of her dad's friends all here, and just to see the impact she made on our community. She was such a bright light and someone that really radiated a lot of love and positivity, and her family is so proud of her, and I think it just really shows by the turnout today. We gathered to heal and get in the water together and honor her through a paddle out. It's a surfer send-off. This is her favorite beach, and it's a place that she'd come and watch her dad surf all the time.
Rylee's family is fighting to put metal detectors in movie theaters so that no more lives are lost. Her father wants to know why metal detectors weren't there in the first place. He said,
"This girl was on a first date with this sweet boy, but he just came back from Hawaii and gave us souvenirs. He doesn't know us. He passed out souvenirs that night at my house. She was so happy. They were like these two little lovebirds. And it was finally a guy that Dad approved of. Metal detectors in theaters. I was just at a baseball game the same night. 40,000 people went through a metal detector. Not one gun was in there. 200 people went to a movie theater and somebody brought a gun in, So how hard is that?"
Rylee and Anthony had their lives taken away far too soon. Both were young, full of promise, and had their whole lives ahead of them. Their futures were bright, filled with potential, and they were murdered in a moment which was supposed to be full of happiness and excitement. During a first date, Joseph's selfish and evil act cut short 2 beautiful lives and shattered countless others. His actions were senseless and brutal, showing a complete disregard for the value of human life. He never deserves to leave prison, and he received the punishment he rightly deserved. The memory of Rylee and Anthony will live on in the hearts of their loved ones, while Joseph will forever be remembered for the heinous crime he committed. As always, my heart goes out to everyone impacted by Joseph's cruel actions, and rest in peace, Rylee Goodrich and Anthony Barajas.